2 Chronicles 8, 1 through 18. Devotional focus verse. Also he built Beth-horon the upper, and Beth-horon the nether, fenced cities with walls, gates, and bars. And Baalath and all the store cities that Solomon had, and all the chariot cities, and the cities of the horsemen, and all that Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem and in Lebanon, and throughout all the land of his dominion. 2 Chronicles 8, 5 and 6. Have you ever stood at the base of a skyscraper and marveled at its height as you looked up? Perhaps you wondered who designed and engineered such a structure. If the skyscraper is located in the United States, American architect Louis Henry Sullivan, 1856 to 1924, deserves a great deal of the credit, even if the building is a relatively recent addition to the city skyline. In today's architectural community, Louis Sullivan is acclaimed as the developer of some of the most significant concepts in modern architecture, including that of the skyscraper. In fact, he is frequently referred to as the father of skyscrapers. Another famous architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, once said of his friend and mentor, "Louis Sullivan gave America the skyscraper as an organic modern work of art." While America's architects were stumbling at its height, piling one thing on top of another, foolishly denying it, Louis Sullivan seized its height as its characteristic feature and made it sing, a new thing under the sun. Although Sullivan lived many centuries after King Solomon, the two men no doubt would have had fascinating discussions if they had lived in the same era. They were both creative, intelligent, and ambitious builders. Today's focus verses list some of Solomon's accomplishments in the field of construction, noting that he built and settled new fortified cities, storage cities, and cities to house his military equipment and cavalry. In other chapters, we read of him building the ornate temple in Jerusalem, his personal palace, and the palace in the forest of Lebanon. We may admire the intelligence and talent of these two men, and countless other brilliant innovators through the ages, but man's creative instinct is just a pale reflection of God's creative power. After all, He is the creator of this amazing universe and all the wonders in it. While we were made in the image of God, and thus have a desire and ability to create, the most elaborate marvels made by man do not come close to the wonders of God's creation. Think of Jesus' words, recorded in Matthew 6, 28 and 29. "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you, that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these." Most of us will never design a building. Our construction efforts may not go much beyond installing shelves in a closet, and our creative endeavors may be limited to knitting a baby blanket or helping our 8-year-old build a birdhouse. However, we can all be energetic, dedicated, and ambitious for the spread of God's kingdom. God has given each one of us abilities He wants to use. We can put our best efforts into the work of the Lord, with the desire that whatever we do will bring glory to Him. Although we likely will never receive the worldly acclaim awarded to creative giants like Solomon and Louis Sullivan, God will be pleased when we do our best for Him, and that is what matters most. Background information. This chapter summarizes Solomon's achievements as king, primarily noting his building accomplishments, verses 1 through 11, his establishment of religious protocols when the temple was completed, verses 12 through 16, and his sea trading ventures, verses 17 and 18. It reveals the great enterprise and productivity of Solomon's administration. The phrase, "at the end of 20 years," in verse 1, indicates that it took Solomon 7 years to build the temple and 13 years to build his palace. See 1 Kings 6:38 and 7:1. At the end of these 20 years, his kingdom was secure, stable, and blessed. The word restored, in verse 2, indicates that King Hiram returned some cities, or villages, to Solomon. Perhaps these were among the cities that displeased Hiram in his exchange with Solomon. See 1 Kings 9, 11, and 12. The military action against Hamath-Zobah, noted in verse 3, was likely a response to the breaking of a peace treaty made earlier by David. The locations of the cities named in verses 4 through 6 reflected Solomon's interest in building throughout all the land of his dominion. Verses 7 through 10 referred to the descendants of tribal nations conquered by God's people in earlier years, whom Solomon used as his labor force. Israelites served in positions that were honorable or managerial in nature, as indicated by the phrase, that bear rule over the people. Solomon's marriage to the Egyptian Pharaoh's daughter, mentioned in verse 11, was the first of his many unwise marriages. See 1 Kings 11, 1 through 3. While his union with idolatrous women was disobedience to God, the fact that he did not want Pharaoh's daughter to reside in close proximity to holy places shows some degree of spiritual sensitivity. Verses 12 through 16 reveal that the worship procedure Solomon instituted after the completion of the temple followed the pattern originally organized by King David. See 1 Chronicles 24. Ezion-Geber, mentioned in verse 17, was a port city established by Solomon on the northern tip of the Red Sea, a location that would have provided him with strategic access to southern trade. The implication is that Hiram supplied ships and skilled mariners for Solomon's fleets. According to 1 Kings 10, 11, and 12, gold, precious stones, and specialty woods were transported to this port. The exact location of Ophir, verse 18, is uncertain, though it possibly was in southern Arabia or the eastern coast of Africa. Conclusion: the reward we seek is an eternal one. We want to please God by doing whatever we can for Him and by performing every act of service to the best of our abilities.
2 Chronicles chapter 8. And it came to pass at the end of 20 years, wherein Solomon had built the house of the Lord, and his own house, that the cities which Hiram had restored to Solomon, Solomon built them, and caused the children of Israel to dwell there. And Solomon went to Hamath-Zobah, and prevailed against it. And he built Tadmor in the wilderness, and all the store cities, which he built in Hamath. Also he built Beth-horon the upper, and Beth-horon the nether, fenced cities, with walls, gates, and bars. And Baalath, and all the store cities that Solomon had, and all the chariot cities, and the cities of the horsemen, and all that Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem, and in Lebanon, and throughout all the land of his dominion. As for all the people that were left of the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which were not of Israel, but of their children, who were left after them in the land, whom the children of Israel consumed not, them did Solomon make to pay tribute until this day. But of the children of Israel did Solomon make no servants for his work, but they were men of war, and chief of his captains, and captains of his chariots and horsemen. And these were the chief of King Solomon's officers, even 250, that bare rule over the people. And Solomon brought up the daughter of Pharaoh of the city of David unto the house that he had built for her, for he said, My wife shall not dwell in the house of David king of Israel, because the places are holy, whereunto the ark of the Lord hath come. Then Solomon offered burnt offerings unto the Lord on the altar of the Lord, which he had built before the porch. Even after a certain rate every day, offering according to the commandment of Moses, on the Sabbaths, and on the new moons, and on the solemn feasts, 3 times in the year, even in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles. And he appointed, according to the order of David his father, the courses of the priests to their service, and the Levites to their charges, to praise and minister before the priests, as the duty of every day required, the porters also by their courses at every gate, for so had David the man of God commanded. And they departed not from the commandment of the king unto the priests and Levites concerning any matter, or concerning the treasures. Now all the work of Solomon was prepared unto the day of the foundation of the house of the Lord, and until it was finished. So the house of the Lord was perfected. Then went Solomon to Eziongeber, and to Eloth, at the seaside in the land of Edom. And Huram sent him by the hands of his servants' ships, and servants that had knowledge of the sea, and they went with the servants of Solomon to Ophir, and took thence 450 talents of gold, and brought them to King Solomon,